Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's daily show, This Is Nashville, engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com.
I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. One of American Baptist College's most famous alumni is the late John Lewis, who was a part of the Nashville sit-in movement and the Freedom Riders movement and later became a U.S. representative. He spoke often about his start at ABC. Here he is speaking at Vanderbilt in 2012.
I first arrived in Nashville in the fall of 1957. 17 years old, had all of my hair and a few pounds lighter. I arrived here to study at what was then the American Baptist Theological Seminary, now American Baptist College. Like so many southern cities and communities, Nashville, this city, this Athens of the South, was segregated. It was black and white. Segregation and racial discrimination was the order of the day. And it was here, in this city, that a group of students first met in the basement of Clark Memorial United Methodist Church almost every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. for an entire school year.
Now we're going to learn more about the legacy of student activists at American Baptist College. Joining us now is ABC President, Dr. Forrest Harris. Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Really a pleasure. All right, so I want to start from the beginning. I understand that ABC had an unusual start. Can you tell us how American Baptist College was founded?
Yes, American Baptist College's unusual founding happened as a result of the National Baptist Convention leaders at the time, predominantly black denomination, and the Southern Baptist Convention, predominantly white convention, came together and they envisioned establishing a school to train rural clergy to help them become effective leaders in their community. That partnership came to fruition in 1924. And American Baptist College was founded then as a seminary for training clergy to be effective leaders in their community.
Why did they decide to work together in this way?
It was a part of the historical context at the time in 1924 when facilities or educational institutions were segregated. And the seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, the Southern Baptist Seminary, did not admit African-American students. So the white counterpart, the Southern Baptist Convention, determined that African-American clergy needed a place of training. Mm-hmm. And they came together with National Baptist leaders and envisioned this school for black religious leaders.
You said that they specifically wanted to help develop and train clergy for rural areas. Why the emphasis on rural areas?
Not so much rural areas, but though they were the people who frequent the school at the time, mm-hmm. It was urban pastors or leaders as well here in Nashville and around the country that came to American Baptist College. But many of them came from rural areas in different states and different places, but many of them had city or urban experience.
It's kind of interesting that the all-white Southern Baptist Convention was a funder of the school for many years because the seminary ended up becoming the very, very fertile ground for activism against white supremacy and segregation. What was that relationship like between, as students like John Lewis are gathering together and training to kind of end segregation, yet some in the SBC were proponents of segregation?
Very interesting insight. I don't think Southern Baptist leaders had an inkling that they were bringing together a possibility through this educational institution to resist the very institution or the very environment, the very system that created the need for American Baptist College. So they didn't, I think, in their minds, understand that that movement was a part of, or that decision would become a part of a movement that would resist segregation, white supremacy, and all the systems that supported white supremacy. If they had, I don't know whether the school would have been founded.
Yeah.
But they had a rather paternalistic understanding of religion and what religion meant. And they did not understand that religion and justice is inseparable, that the gospel, the Christian vision of the world is inseparable from liberation, love, and justice, over and against a private piety about God as an individual, personal God, rather than a God involved in the communal justice for all people.
I do want to talk about this a little bit more in detail later on in the show, but is that sort of the theological or philosophical approach? Was that the philosophical approach of the school from the onset of its founding?
Yeah, it was a mixture. It was a mixture of understanding the gospel as a personal conversion to the life of Jesus Christ and what that meant for your eternal salvation, over against the gospel as a social, impactful way of understanding God's presence in the world through Jesus that would cause for persons to be committed to social justice change. And there were arguments on our campus early on between students who were proponents of the social gospel over against students who thought the gospel was mainly for your personal conversion.
I'm sure those type of debates encourage great minds and great thinking, right?
It did. And that's what a school ought to provide, is an environment for good debate and good exchanges to occur so people can be dialogical and informed about other perspectives that will help shape a better understanding of ideas and truth.
I want to talk a little bit about the activism at the school and how it played out. What role did ABC students and faculty have in the Nashville civil rights movement?
Well, in the clip that you had on about John Lewis in the 1960s, Reverend Keller Mills Smith Sr. was the homiletics professor there, and other professors drilled into the students the idea that justice and love is a part of the movement that Jesus was about. Jesus called it the kingdom of God. They were referred to it as the reign of God, the reign of God's love and justice that should impact every relationship and every institution. And so when Nashville was in a culture of segregation, and Nashville represented the antithesis of that understanding of the gospel, those students got invigorated, not only from the standpoint that they experienced it every day. They experienced it when they went downtown Nashville, or they experienced it from the towns that they came from. John Lewis wanted to really go to Troy University in Alabama, but he was not admitted because of his color. So they both had the experience of segregation. Now these instructors at American Baptist College were teaching them a theological perspective of the gospel that they had not heard in the way that helped them understand the two went together.
I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, and along with that, at the time in Nashville, James Lawson was a student at Vanderbilt University coming from a Gandhian experience where he met Gandhi and learned the philosophy of civil disobedience and nonviolence. And Lawson became their teacher as well. As he mentioned in the clip, every Tuesday night they met in Clark and were there at the feet of James Lawson learning the principle of nonviolent social disobedience. So the combination of all that made a very great moment of teaching and a great moment of activism together.
Were there other people besides alumni like John Lewis involved?
Yes, C.T. Vivian was there. Julius Scruggs, who just recently passed away, former pastor of the First Missionary Baptist Church in Huntsville and president of the National Baptist Convention, was a student there. James Bevel was there, who was a close comrade in the Freedom Rides and in the Selma movement, and as well as Bernard Lafayette, who was a former president of American Baptist College. So we had a number of students at American Baptist College, but also students at Fisk, Diane Nash, and at Tennessee State University and Meharry Medical College, and some students from even white institutions like Vanderbilt and others that came together and were part of those workshops. But that formed a kind of pedagogical teaching platform for students to put together the importance of the Christian faith or religion with social justice, and saw that that was inseparable as they understood what they were to do at that time.
I want to play a clip of John Lewis in action shortly after graduating from ABC. This is him speaking at the March on Washington in 1963.
Let us not forget that we are involved in a serious social revolution, where is a political party that will make it unnecessary to march on Washington? Where is the political party that will make it unnecessary to march in the streets of Birmingham? Those who have said be patient and wait, we must say that we cannot be patient. If we do not get meaningful legislation out of this Congress, we will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham.
All right, one thing that really stands out to me is that how he sounds. Like a preacher, much like how Martin Luther King Jr. and others at the time would use the techniques and oratory skills that preachers often use to communicate with others. Is that something that the college would train students in?
Oh, that is the very niche of the school and the very niche of the training of the school. Homiletics and preaching, the Black preaching tradition.
Okay, so I don't mean to interrupt, but you said this term again, homiletics. Please explain to me what that is.
Yeah, it's the science of preaching. It is the way in which people develop skills and methodologies of oratory and social reality and the biblical text, all coming together to express through the personality of the preacher the truth of the gospel. Wow. And homiletics is that science and that course that students take in order to put all those elements together in order to be effective preachers of the gospel. So that's homiletics.
Okay.
John Lewis and all of those who came through that school had an introduction to that homiletics through Kelly Miller Smith Senior, through Kelly Miller Smith Sr., who taught them homiletics. C.T. Vivian taught them homiletics. So what you heard John Lewis there in Washington just before Martin Luther King Jr. and giving his speech, his sermon, it took on that oratory of a preacher, forcing truth to surface through his articulation that justice and what was going on in the country at the time, that they were willing and committed to march through the streets of the South in order to achieve justice, and using the backdrop of the gospel because of that.
Is it fair to say that American Baptist College at that time had the strongest homiletics team in the country? Feels like it.
I'll claim it. I'll claim it. I think so. We are known for great preachers. We're known for pastors across the country being great proclaimers of the gospel, and we are known for that.
I read that members of Martin Luther King Jr.'s executive staff, many of them came from ABC. More of them came from ABC than any other school in the nation. Why do you think that is?
It's a kind of time of history and context and what was going on, that at American Baptist College and the movement, the lunch counter sit-in movement, the freedom rides onto the civil rights movement and its larger expressions involved a cadre of students from American Baptist College more than from any other institution here in Nashville or other places. So at one point you had John Lewis, you had C.T. Vivian, you had Bernard Lafayette, you had James Bevel, Julius Scruggs, and others. but the more prominent ones were John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, Bernard Lafayette, and James Bevel. But from that little school, on what we call the Holy Hill along the Cumberland River, that school participated in the movement that changed the nation and world around how justice ought to be for all persons and all people of color to flourish.
Now, you got your degree in theology from American Baptist College. And at the time you were going to school there, these figures were pretty recent history at that point. How did that impact your experience on campus? What was it like for you when you walked onto campus for the first time?
It was amazing. Matter of fact, I heard of American Baptist College through meeting Dr. Julius Scruggs, who preached in a small town, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. American Baptist College was not my first undergraduate experience. I graduated from Knoxville College with a BA degree in sociology and psychology. And I had started working at the Energy Research and Development Administration in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, formerly known as Department of the Atomic Energy Commission, now the Department of Energy. And I had been working there for almost 10 years.
Okay.
When this urgency in my spirit as it relates to the black church that I was raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and that church and its spirituality, my parents, my mother and father, the preacher, Reverend Brady Johnson, the pastor, marked me in a way that I didn't know. So after graduating from college, working in a government job for almost 10 years, this urgency about the spirituality and about the call we at that time referred to it and still refer to it, being called to the ministry, being called to preach. I resigned that government job, and I felt I needed to be retooled in the theology, the preaching tradition of the black church, and that American Baptist College, Julius Scruggs says, that's the place that you can get that retooling. And that's how I ended up on campus. And that's how I ended up getting the environment and the culture of American Baptist College in my spirit.
I understand you have a picture of John Lewis in your office on campus, right?
Oh, yes.
What does that picture mean to you?
It means a great deal. I went to Washington, had a picture commission when he received the President Medal of Freedom. And I took that picture to Washington and gave it to him. And at that moment, the camera person there took a picture of he and myself. And every time I come into my office, it's right there. And it reminds me of a great person who gave so much and made so many sacrifices on the behalf of this nation, not just on the behalf of black people's freedom, but on behalf of this nation, for it to become the true democracy and the true place for justice so that all persons can experience freedom to its fullest.
What does it mean to you to be the president of this institution that was so integral in the civil rights movement and exposing America and, as you said, the world to this idea of freedom and justice, although that necessarily wasn't the path that you saw for yourself as a young man? It was something you were called to. What does it mean to you to be a part of this?
It has been the joy of my life to have been asked and then responded to the call to be president of American Baptist College now for nearly 25 years. And what it has meant to me, it is that you contribute to a tradition and a history that made a difference in the world, and how we continue that vision, how we continue that education for a new generation. At American Baptist College now, we call what we do social justice, advocacy, equity, and leadership. We call it our SEAL initiative. Social justice, social justice, equity, advocacy, and leadership. And that under that SEAL initiative, we try to train students to understand what justice and what equity and what advocacy and leadership means as they choose a vocation, whether it's preaching, whether it's the pastorate, as they choose a vocation to contribute to transformation in the world. So it has meant a lot to me. It's been the joy of my life to serve as president of the college.
All right, let's take a quick break. Dr. Harris, stay right there. When we return, we'll look at the future for American Baptist College and ask, what is the role of schools with a Christian social justice focus in a world where fewer people identify as religious. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. Today we're talking about the local HBCU you may not have heard about, American Baptist College. The institution is celebrating 100 years this year. Home to notable alumni like John Lewis and Bernard Lafayette, ABC was integral in the education and training of influential civil rights leaders. Now in 2024, let's discover how ABC is preparing for the future. With me is Dr. Forrest Harris, president of American Baptist College, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Phyllis Qualls, director of communications, to the conversation. Phyllis, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate you being here. Okay, so Phyllis, tell me a little bit about your origin story. How did you come to be a part of American Baptist College?
Well, they offered me a job and I took it. It's really
Simple
just
as
that simple. Yes. I have been around Nashville for 30 years. I came here from Mississippi and worked at Tennessee State University and then worked for State of Tennessee in tourism. So I went from promoting a college to promoting a state. Mm-hmm. So I thought I knew every nook and cranny in the state, having worked with alumni going all over. But I found some true treasures in the state when you work in tourism. So other positions took place. I worked with FEMA for a while and after the major flood, and that was very heartwarming to have to go by policy, and you're dealing with people who've lost their homes. Mm. And so it was very special to my heart, and I'll always remember that. And then a couple of other things, and I ended up with at American Baptist College. And it was amazing because I had included ABC in my dissertation when I worked on my doctorate in talking about the perception of HBCUs throughout the nation, but specifically the 4 in Nashville. So I had already done a lot of research on the institution for my doctorate degree, so it just kind of seemed special that I was able to work with Dr. Harris and the administration in that special time of the institution.
Okay, so I do want to talk about that. This is in line with the mention of ABC in your dissertation. You know, if you ask a lot of people to name HBCUs, ABC is not coming off first. They're talking about Fisk. They're talking about Meharry. They're talking about TSU. Why do you think ABC gets forgotten?
Well, there are a number of reasons. It's the smallest of the institutions in Nashville, and it is known as the preacher school. So it's known in those segments, and it kind of took care of itself. Located in this beautiful part of North Nashville on World Baptist Center Drive, used to be had another name, but when all of the buildings took place, and it's on the Cumberland River. So you can't find a more scenic place than American Baptist College. So when you're talking about religiosity, then that name will come up in certain segments. Mm. But what we want to do, we have taken this year, and it's really 3 years, the 99th year, the 100th year, and the 101st year. And then we will see what happens after that in really promoting and advocating about this institution. Because we aren't just talking about preachers. We aren't just talking about the faith. We're talking about an institution with a liberal arts education that can provide a pathway to any student for wherever they want to go. Mm. And that's what it does. At our convocation last night, President Harris talked about the students who had graduated this past May and who were going on to go to school at Vanderbilt. I believe in the divinity school. So we provide that foundation in offering both bachelor's and associate degrees in a number of areas so that they have that good foundation. Don't you want somebody to work with you who knows right from wrong? Don't you want somebody who you work with who won't be a bully and beat down on people? Don't you want someone to work for you who has respect for others? And you would believe it or not, when I was growing up, that was Mama Da and Papa Sam.
Mm-hmm.
But in our culture now, you need that kind of foundation, and you get that in the classes at American Baptist College.
We talked earlier this hour about the civil rights history at ABC. Phyllis, what has ABC done to fight from being stuck in the past? And what I mean is there's a particular way of things that were effective 60 years ago that were needed to be effective. Now in 2024, a lot of people are still fighting for social justice, but they think there's different ways to go about that. How has American Baptist College evolved its stance on social justice and within civil rights? How do you take that evolution, and what are you teaching the students?
I'll start, and Dr. Harris can bring it on home. But we are very clear that we can't be frozen in time. From the school's founding in 1924 to its time in the civil rights movement in the 60s, and then here we are now. There's a reason that we are here for 100 years. So we want to take that momentum. We don't forget the Holocaust. We don't forget any of the significant activities that took place in this country and throughout the world. We honor those. But what do we do now moving forward? What do we do to prevent Trayvon from what happened to Trayvon? What do we do to prevent what happened to George Floyd? What do we do, and what are we doing at American Baptist College so that we can build social justice agents that can speak and who can walk the walk and talk the talk to prevent these things from happening? So yes, we honor John Lewis, but we have students now, and Dr. Harris recognized one last night at Convocation who had the newness of what is happening in the social justice world, and how we help those students and have a platform for not just Nashville, not just HBCUs, but a platform that can change the world, just as John Lewis and C.T. Vivian did. Once that happened, they went all over the world because people wanted to learn about this nonviolence activities that would bring about change from that founding in what James Lawson learned from Gandhi. Mm-hmm. So how do we take that now and apply it to a technological world, to students who would rather watch on their phones than to read a book? What do we do so that they can have that understanding?
Dr. Harris.
Yeah, you said it very well, Phyllis. Social justice cannot be frozen in time or frozen in a past. What John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, and those persons confronted in the 60s as it relates to economic segregation, lunch counter protests, that social justice movement helped them to understand, help us understand in modern context that justice is an ongoing movement for the systems and structures that keep people oppressed and keep people from being full participants in our society. So we have mass incarceration. The college has had a mass incarceration relationship, meaning that we go inside the prison and we have interaction with the persons there, and they come out of those experiences. And we've had two persons, Cyrus Wilson and Raheem Buford, come out of the prison system, become a student at American Baptist College, graduate, and then they become responsible public citizens leading the Nashville Bail Fund, for an example. Mm-hmm. Cyrus Wilson now is the executive director.
And Raheem Buford has been a multiple guest on This Is Nashville.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are examples of students who come to the school and have a foundation for what social justice means in relationship to their passion and their commitments. But beyond even that, justice has a relational quality for every generation, meaning that, for an example, right now, environmental challenges in the community, environmental justice is a real crisis in neighborhoods that have been neglected. In light of the global climate crisis, it still means more when that climate crisis affect communities that have been neglected. And so we're talking about environmental justice, digital sovereignty and digital justice, digital divide that keep people in our communities that have been unprivileged from being able to take advantage of the new technology. So the school has been working the last year with a grant from the Department of Commerce on a digital equality grant, so to speak, where in our 15-mile radius, we are making digital education and access for people that otherwise would not have it, working with the YMCA and updating our campus to become a technology hub so that we can help people access what it means to be a part of a platform and get access to education, to civic engagement, all those kinds of things. So that's the update as it relates to our social justice commitment at the school.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekolona. We're talking this hour about the American Baptist College, which is celebrating 100 years of service. My guests are ABC President Dr. Forrest Harris and Communication Director Dr. Phyllis Qualls. Now, President Harris, you know, the role of the Black church in people's lives has really changed a lot since the Civil Rights Movement. Fewer people are going to church. How does that change how you train students to be civil rights leaders?
Well, thank you for that insightful question. The Black church tradition is the strongest expression of Black people's faith in this country. And the Black church still remains a central part of what and how Black people understand their sense of community and their sense of family and how they participate in the larger society. The decline in church membership of the Black church is not only experienced in the Black church or Black churches, but all over the country we see a decline in people going to church and having church membership. So our training is to help our students understand what the Black church tradition means for them. If they feel called to the Black church as a leader, a pastor, to be effective leaders in the church, but also that the ministry that the Black church has always been about is beyond the walls of the church, so that they can do ministry and they can become imaginative and creative as to how they express their sense of commitment beyond the ecclesial walls of the church and never yet neglect the church. So we have people who are committed to community organizing. We have entrepreneurial leadership where people want to start businesses that can help transform the community and make business more a viable opportunity for them. We have people who are interested in mental health and behavioral wellness, where students are interested in developing skills for counseling and helping people become mentally well. Also, we are very excited about how our students are creative. We have students in the secondary schools. We have teachers. We have people at chaplains all over. We have people in various vocations that tell us that beyond what we see the Black church as the central place for what we train people to do, we train people to be participants in various vocations that has a lens of social justice, has a lens for what it means to have justice a part of their understanding of life.
Okay, now the school is pretty small. You got about 50 students in 2022. That seems like there was a really large decline around the pandemic. Phyllis, why do you think that is? Yeah, tell me.
Well, you just said it. There were a number of factors that caused our student population to drop, and we are working very diligently on building that up. So rather than just focus on that decline, I do want to pepper the whole conversation was everybody on staff is doing everything that they can to bring more students in. But there are a number of factors. COVID hurt us all. So it's been an effort to bounce back. There are fewer students throughout the nation who are reaching out to divinity schools or seminaries because we are fighting with those myths that say you can do better by going to a technical school and you earn more. And I was just at a session on Monday, and you say that's a myth. Don't believe it, because that college education solidifies your foundation, and then you can do better at whatever you do. So don't take the temporary quick step and thinking it's going to help for the long haul of your life. So those are factors that we are working with, but we are excited about the number of students that we do have. If we get caught up in we don't have, and we know their budget, and I can feel Dr. Harris saying, there are budget constraints and budget things that we have to look forward to, and that is true. And that's why everybody on campus is tasked to help enrollment. But at the same time, we take one student at a time. And if we could help mold that student's life to be forward-thinking and doing their best they can, then we have succeeded. And we hope that one student can get another student and get another student. There was only one John Lewis. There was only one C.T. Vivian. There was only one James Bevel. And look what they did. So we're proud. We don't want our students to feel neglected because we don't have 500 students. We want each one that we have now to feel very special.
All right, got 30 seconds left.
Okay.
It's the centennial year. Phyllis, tell us, how is the school celebrating? What do you have planned?
Oh, we've got a plethora of activities. As I said, 99, 100, and 101 we're celebrating. So last night we had our centennial fall convocation. President Harris was our keynote speaker and devoted a great deal of time to that whole focus of what we are at the 100th year. And so when you talk about student body and enrollment, you want to think about, but I'm a part of history and this legacy. And in September 17th, we're going to have our Constitution Day. And that is the Constitution is a big thing right now, and how people want to treat it. I've got 30 seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are a number of activities, but our main thing is G&L. We moved G&L from March this year to October to be a part of the centennial celebration. And for us, that's like homecoming. And it's going to be October 20th through the 25th, along with some other activities. Go to our website and you'll see everything.
All right. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Forrest Harris, president of American Baptist College, and Dr. Phyllis Qualls, communications director. Thank you both for being with us, and congratulations on 100 years.
Thank
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk with the current ABC student and an alumni of the school to hear more about what learning at American Baptist College is like. We'll be right back. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. We're talking about American Baptist College, the small school in North Nashville that's celebrating 100 years of service. Now, before the break, we spoke with the school's president and communications director about the school's history and what the future holds. But now, let's learn what it's like to be a student at ABC. My next guests are here to put us in the know. I'd like to welcome Aaron Ford, student government president at American Baptist College. Aaron, Mr. President, I should say, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I want to talk about school life. Tell me, what's it like to be a student at ABC?
It's definitely a unique experience. It's not your traditional college experience. Very small school, very compact, but strength in numbers, and we're like a family. So everybody and everybody knows you. So therefore, you hold each other accountable. The environment is very welcoming. There's no strangers on campus, so I really appreciate that.
Okay, so 50 students. I imagine your high school was much larger than that.
Definitely.
So how do you mentioned that everybody's a family and everyone knows each other, but as far as education, do you appreciate the fact that you can have more one-on-one time with your instructors?
Definitely. You're more intentional with your studying time. Professors know you by first and last name. You can get one-on-one help, one-on-one attention. Always a benefit to have people knowing you, and not knowing just a face, but knowing you as who you are, to maybe kind of specifically help you with exactly what you need. So that's always appreciated. How
did you become a student at ABC?
I initially was going to go to Tennessee State University, 10 minutes away. And they had a housing issue a couple years back. I'm not sure if they're still having it, but I was looking for other options since I didn't want to experience college virtually. So my auntie went to Fisk University, and she mentioned to me and my father about American Baptists, and me and my father never heard about it. So we did some research about it. We had a meeting with the admissions director, and I got recruited to come here.
Okay. Now, the school recently posted something on Instagram. It's kind of a new campus tradition. Let's listen. All right. Now, Aaron, if I understand correctly, you were the one ringing that bell, right?
Yes, sir.
What's going on there?
So that is our new student, initiation during our welcome week. So basically, as the names were called, the students were passing under the arches that say American Baptist College, and basically saying once you walk in those arches, you won't walk back out those arches until you graduate. So it's kind of like a new ritual that we have, and I think it was pretty special.
Yeah. All right. I want to come back to the new generation of students, but first I want to introduce our other guest, Reverend Dr. James Douglas Clay. He is pastor at New Visions Baptist Church. Reverend Clay, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you came to American Baptist College as a non-traditional student.
That's correct.
Tell me, what does that mean?
Non-traditional in that when I arrived on the Holy Hill, I was 41 years old, about turned 42. I had a career already, had been recruited by Comcast to come down. That's how I originally came to Nashville. Comcast recruited me to come down, take over their sales department. I was a relatively new preacher, had recently acknowledged my call to ministry. And as I left Chicago, which is my hometown, I had a conversation with my pastor, Reverend Dr. Stephen Thurston, and he said that, James, you need to go to school. One of the great things happened for me after getting out of the military, I picked up skill set in sales and marketing and had no problem moving on and going from there. But now as a new preacher, it was necessary to get schooling. I call it matching up with your calling, your commitment to your calling. And upon coming here, I joined the St. James Baptist Church under Dr. George T. Brooks. And Dr. Brooks, my first conversation with him was, now, James, you need to go to school, and through our giving at St. James, we have a scholarship for you. And so I started in January of 2006. Much different experience. Naturally, I had children. I had a career, and I went to class. I went to campus to do classes only for the first 2 years, but then I started interacting with students that were much younger than myself, and that's when everything came alive.
Did you knew you wanted to be a pastor, you got the call. Did all of your other classmates, as you were there getting to know them?
Well, I don't think any of us, I don't personally believe that anyone really knows that you're going to be called to ministry. It kind of happens. You find yourself with this calling upon your life, this pulling, something that is prodding and pushing you into this ministry at a higher level. I believe that we all had assumptions. I believe in some cases, yes, there were some who already knew. As a matter of fact, Pastor Matt Terrell was already pastoring in Mississippi at the time that we were on the Hill. He commuted back and forth on the weekends. But many of us were still filling it out.
Now, what was unique about ABC as opposed to the other seminary schools you could have considered?
Well, the great thing about ABC was what Aaron mentioned, the low class size, which means you can be more intimate with your peers and your colleagues. In addition to that, my pastor, Dr. Thurston, had been as a product of Bishop College, which also has very similar background as American Baptist College. And as having discussions with him, recognized the issues with higher education, particularly as it applies to Christian schools, as that school is now defunct. But again, he championed and pushed me to go to school, and then Dr. Brooks. So putting it all together, knowing that you need to go, and then you have this recommendation from two who are very, very good at what they do, it made sense to follow that line.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekolona. We're talking this hour about what being a student at American Baptist College is like. My guests are current student and SGA president, Aaron Ford, and ABC alumni, Reverend Dr. James Douglas Clay. Now, the school just doesn't teach future clergy only. That change happened a few years after you left, Reverend Clay. But Aaron, tell me, what are you studying? What's your course of study right now?
Entrepreneurial leadership.
All right. Okay, so do you feel like the curriculum is challenging yet supportive to you there?
Absolutely. I do believe that. I believe it's challenging in a good way. Like, it's pushing me past limits I didn't know I even had. And it also kind of is teaching me certain things, but in a religious format. And that's very beneficial, calling myself a Christian man. So learning how to do things in a business way, but in a Christian manner, that's very helpful to me.
Okay, so, civil rights is a large part of the school's history. And I'm curious about, like, all the lessons. Are they given to you through the vantage point of civil rights? I mean, do they ask civil rights questions in math class?
Not necessarily civil rights questions, but they ask questions about leadership, or like in our SEAL thing, like social justice, advocacy, equity. They always implement that in every class possible. So in a math class, we will receive a question talking about how is this equitable in the situation in the equation we're solving. Like, so it's mentioned in every type of class.
I'm curious about the conversations you may be having with your peers. I mean, in today's world, a lot more people are aware of equity, where equity is not being given, and that is a push and focus for a lot of folks, particularly young people your age. Are the conversations you're having outside of class based in that frame of social justice work and equity?
Surprisingly to me, they are, because I grew up just only caring about sports. So seeing myself being in an environment where I can have an open conversation about that is kind of mind-boggling to me. But around campus, like, even when we're not in class, even when we're not studying, we're always having conversations of that sort.
Does that give you kind of faith and hope with your peers?
Absolutely. It definitely does.
Now, Reverend Clay, you were a lot older when you came to school.
Yes.
You were making a life change. You had kids of your own. What can ABC offer to people who might be looking for something different in their lives, or called to something different in their lives?
I believe the greatest thing is the smaller class sizes. Again, it gives you a chance to have interaction. One of the greatest things happened at ABC, I have a daughter who recently graduated from Alabama A&M this past December. She's back down there working on a master's now. My son is just started his senior year at Tuskegee. Both of those two children, because of ABC, were able to come to my Saturday morning class, 8 a.m. And they remember playing on the floor while I was in class. That is indelible. It was a mark placed upon them because they had a chance to see me and see that anything you want, you can achieve if you're willing to put the work in. But that is something that is consistent with American Baptist College. Come, participate. By all means, come in and be a part. And so for me, looking at what can be done for others, come to American Baptist College so that you can feel that you are a part of something. Because even now, with so many alumni who I went to school with, and we talk, we still reminisce about the great times on the Holy Hill next to the Cumberland River.
I mean, you're both a part of this legacy that a lot of people aren't really aware of. How are you taking it upon yourself to extend not only extend that legacy and allow it to continue to live, but to inform folks? Reverend Clay.
Everywhere I go, I make it a point to usually take an ABC T-shirt at minimum. But I speak. I don't care. You could be a graduate of XYZ school. I'm willing to slide up to you, and I believe the education that I received, the foundation that I stand upon that originates there at American Baptist College, is on par with anybody else. And so, but answer your question further, I tell people, American Baptist College, I've invested in students that have come after me and will continue to do so.
Now, Aaron, this show could be heard by somebody who's deciding what to do with themselves, college in the future or the near future. What do you want them to know about ABC?
I want people to know that ABC is a school for everybody. Anytime I'm walking around or in town or back home in Memphis, people ask me what school I go to. I say ABC, American Baptist College. And they're like, what's that? And initial reaction is like, dang, really, not a lot of people know about my school. But that sort of gives me like an underdog mentality that makes me want to be like, hey, I'm going to make you find out about my school. I want you to find out about it. So I really wear that with pride now.
I want to thank you both for being here. Aaron Ford is the student government president at American Baptist College, and Reverend Dr. James Douglas Clay is an alum of ABC and pastor at New Visions Baptist Church. Again, thank you both for being here, and congratulations on 100 years.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Emily Seiner. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And special thanks to Deborah Ravello and Marcia Royce Holmes Jones. I want to thank you all for being a part of this. The conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us at This Is Nashville. Find us on Instagram and tell us what you want from our show by filling out our quick survey online. Also, you can call us to leave us a voicemail message, 615-751-2500. Note, we may use that message on air. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil A. Colonna. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.